Hello everyone, welcome back to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 4th February 2021. In this video, we'll be discussing this couple of issues, one with respect to border management and other with respect to the commentary on how budget has moved away from its fiscal orthodoxy. In our internal security syllabus, we have a chapter called border management. Now, this chapter is very important in our syllabus because we are virtually facing a two front war. On the one side, we have Chinese attacking us, and on the other, we have our conventional enemy in the form of Pakistan. So, border management has always been a challenge considering the terrain that we have on our borders. It consists of hills, it consists of rivers, and every sort of physical barriers that is not accessible. And these challenges have been used to their advantage by infiltrators, terrorists, and they have always penetrated Indian borders. So, in this context, we are looking at a concept called smart walls, which has been in vogue considering the US Mexico border wall. Trump's administration, after he won the election in 2016, said that they would be coming up with the concept of smart wall. In short, what can you expect at a border? We have manned surveillance, we have weaponry, we have surveillance team that manually checks aerial view drones, all this sort of technologies which stops infiltrators in every possible way. Now, the smart wall concept evolves from the idea that what if we automate all these aspects? This is possible in today's world with the use of certain technologies. What are those technologies? Radars. The next one is thermal imaging. The third one is automated vehicles and automated weapons. So, whenever we see that instead of physical barriers, the smart wall is set up, if there is an infiltrator, all this scheme of things will come into action to stop that infiltration. That is the concept of smart wall. Now, our borders are vulnerable because there is always a problem of security breach. There is a problem of loss of life of people who are manning these borders. If we have to take an example, the Pathankot attack on our armed forces is one such example. However, there are certain caveats in deploying this idea. In the United States, it is considered to be a cost-effective alternative. But if it is connected to internet, our communication networks are under the threat of cybersecurity. We cannot allow automated borders, but we will need certain backup in the form of humans. So, if we can overcome this problem, this is a very significant development in our border management. India has already adopted the CIBMS, or the Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System, which calls for smart fences. So whenever there is infiltration, there is a alert that is sent out. So this sort of a system should not just be restricted to the fencing itself, but the entire system of surveillance according to this concept of smart walls. This article, titled It's Goodbye to Fiscal Orthodoxy, is taken from the Hindu. In our economic survey, there is a chapter on India's status on the fundamentals of our economy and its reflection in the sovereign credit ratings. What is sovereign credit ratings? There are certain agencies which say whether a particular economy is worthy of investment. Just like movie reviews, these credit rating agencies give certain ratings to economy based on certain parameters like credit worthiness or the tax to GDP ratio or debt to GDP ratio and various other parameters and arrive at a formula. So in this chapter, India has argued that we have always been subjugated to discrimination despite having no default history. We have always paid our interest on time despite this fact, and despite the fact that we have a very low debt to GDP ratio. Most of the credit rating agencies, which are located in the Western world, have always looked down upon India. In contrast, if you take a look at the 2008 financial crisis, it is because of the absolute failure of these credit rating agencies which have given AAA, which is the highest possible rating for certain investments. So, when these credit rating agencies are looking down upon India, there is every reason we can afford to move away and not fear that FDI would not flow into our country. The reason for this is we are entering into a demographic phase where we can reap a dividend. So, what do you mean by this? 15 to 55. This is the age group called the working age population. Now, by 2047, we'll be having significant amount of population in this age group, that is 60%. So, we have a huge market, we have a huge labor force, and we invest in the right places, like in the case of health, education, etc., and also skill development, and ensure that all the structural reforms are happening at the right time. Even if we increase our fiscal deficit for this, even if it comes at the cost of a reduced rating of sovereign credit agencies, India should not bother. So this is the underlying logic in this article. So in this article, we're talking about the Washington Consensus about macroeconomic stability. This Washington Consensus is about the post World War II era, where IMF has been bestowed upon the responsibility of ensuring balance of payments across the countries. However, there are two concerns. One, if we increase our fiscal deficit, there is a probability that inflation will go up. But it does not matter, because if we are investing in the right places, as this budget has exhibited, we are increasing our capex, that is the capital expenditure. We are investing in our future. At the same time, we are moving towards privatization or disinvestment from ailing PSUs. At the same time, we are ensuring that all the structural reforms are in place for increased foreign direct investments into sectors which were hitherto unexplored. So, for example, recently the insurance sector has been even more further opened up for foreign direct investment. So this opens up new avenues for economy, and therefore rightly we can say that privatization means more FDI. So India should stop worrying about sovereign credit ratings and fiscal deficit. However, there should be enough care to not let this fiscal deficit cross a threshold wherein it becomes totally unsustainable. Another important aspect is that fiscal deficit should directly go into capital expenditure. If that happens, FRBM targets can be breached and they can be taken back to normalcy in a future. So that is the gist of this article.